Okay, with great pleasure, I'd like to welcome John Parsons. I've known this man for 40 years plus. John, if memory serves me correctly, spent many, many years on the Chesapeake in Ohio. For those people that come out some years ago, and time goes by us very quickly, John had put together a miniature incline, all mechanically driven, of the little railroad over here that went up the side of the hill and back down.
Right.
And it was brilliant. Yeah. I mean, his work was just absolutely spellbound. It was all done because he's a machinist. As the little car came down, the other car went up, and it passed each other, and it's all to scale. And he brought it out to the library meeting we had some years ago, and it was delightful. And he also has it on display and very, very active. He is the man responsible for restoring the railway artifacts up at the museum uptown, along with Ron Barham. And he's just an amazing man. And on your next birthday, John, how old will you be?
86.
86. 86, and he's still, I mean, I roll my eyes. You were born, raised, and brought up in Port Stanley.
No, I had.
Was it?
I spent 43 to probably 40, 45, 46 here.
Okay. And then you got into the trade uptown.
Got into the trade, and we moved uptown to be near to the work. And well, we used to come down. My uncle was a head electrician on one of the big coal boats. And we used to come down whenever it come in. It was the Midland Prince.
Good.
That was early on.
Well, what we've done, folks, we've invited John out today because he's a fountain of information on the traction line, not the old LNPS on the west side of the river, but the one that came down behind the green roof and through Union and wound up just over here in the real, where the Remax station is, the office is today. That's the old original traction line cement block building that's still in existence. One of the things that's been on the Canadian side, yeah. So anyway, and also we have our own Bob Weare. Bob's going to help John and talk a little bit about telephone poles.
Yeah, it all interrelates.
Yeah. So anyway, the floor is yours, boys. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll read a brief history. Well, it won't be so brief. It's 2 or 3 pages of it here, of the traction line and its subsidiary. Most of this information I got out of the photo or the microfiche films the local library up in St. Thomas had back in the early 1900s. So most of this I believe to be true, but the odd thing sure shows up as I won't say a lie, but something that didn't happen. But anyway, starting around 1900 or maybe just prior, a provincial charter was granted to the Southwestern Traction Company. One of the drawbacks at that time was the Lord's Day Alliance. I guess everybody's heard of that. It was quite prominent, and it didn't allow much work to go on Sundays, and consequently the traction line couldn't operate on Sundays. By 1904, they had 5 miles of track laid to Lambeth. 1905, St. Thomas lays track from Alma. Well, this is another deal for the traction line. The city streetcar system didn't run the full length of Topper Street. It branched off and ran down Alma Street to Inkerman and then back up Inkerman to Toppet. So there was a 2-block gap there, and the city laid track there for the traction line so they'd have a direct run through on Toppet Street. 1906, the tracks inspected to the subway north of the city at the Grand Trunk Western Railway. This subway actually was a depression in the traction line tracks. It proved to be a problem in later years, but apparently they didn't put a drain in when they first built it, and they got flooded out 2 or 3 times, and it meant that they had to use a bus the south side of that into St. Thomas, and so anyway, they apparently put a drain in. It was all right for a few years. In 1906, they had some major problems with the electrical system. It was a European design, and it required 2 overhead wires 3.5 feet apart. It was 3-phase alternating current. And at that point in time, they went to a DC system with single overhead wire running, and they were running a 2-hour schedule between London and St. Thomas. Well, that was a great expense, and about this time they lost quite a few of their cars to fire in London. 1907, new electrical equipment. These were transfer stations in Lambeth, St. Thomas, and Union. The electricity was generated in London for the traction line. Same year, the Hutchison House, which was a hotel on the west end of St. Thomas, was being converted into offices. They had bought that. And then October the 1st, 1907, the first car to Port Stanley. 1908, overhead line strung to Michigan Central Railway Depot for fish cars. These were cars that were loaded down here with crated fish and shipped up to St. Thomas and transferred to the New York Central for their trains running east to Buffalo, New York. Passing track was installed between White and St. Catherine Street in St. Thomas in front of the Southwest Traction Station. That allowed them to get off the city streetcar tracks and into a siding there so they can load and unload at the station. I think you can still see parts of that station. The brickwork is very much like the station down here. 1909, Cottage Special to London. They set a record, 1 hour and 6 minutes. And in 1909, the company was in receivership. Some of the problems were fire in London destroyed several cars, redoing the electrical system, severe winter storms, poorly laid roadbed, floating alone for the direct current installation. And in 1910, the traction line was purchased by London businessmen for $455,000 cash and a balance of the loan. Southwest Traction no more, federal charter obtained. New company, London and Lake Erie Transportation Company, will enable Sunday cars to be run. At this point, they bought land from Fred Pollock down on the east end of the bridge here, south side of the street. They had a dock built, and the paper said they'd purchased a steamboat, but I don't think they did. It was called the Forest City for excursions and cross-lake traffic. They also put a siding in that swept down just out here and back up on the creek, and had a dock built. And so that's 1910 when that ship was purchased. And I think it was bought by the Ohio and Ontario Navigation Company, although one of the cars I have a picture of here has an N on the back end of the name, so that would almost show they were interested in the navigation part too. And I wondered if they didn't have some money in it, because the 1912 in March, the steamer Forest City was sold for $35,000. And the same month, the traction line built new barns on the west end of St. Thomas for the London Lake Erie, 100 by 210 foot dimension. This eventually became the Metal Signs Building, but I think the city bought it at one time for their use for repairing the street railway cars. 1914, October, the London Lake Erie installed a new switch at the west end of St. Thomas. Bob would be interested in this, to connect to the Michigan Central Railway for fish cars, so they could make a quicker transfer there. Before, they had to freight unload the fish on Talbot Street and then freight it over to New York Central. 1915, the LNPS hurt the traction line. This is the first year of their operation electrically. First 6 months, the traction line carried 116,000 passengers. The last 6 months, only 53,000. And the LNPS, of course, had ran their first electric train July the 1st. In 1916, again, the subway shows up. It was flooded. The drain was blocked. Passengers had to walk over the Grand Trunk Western tracks to board cars on the other side. And this year, they cut their fares to match the LNPS, which was 30 cents. I presume that was one way to London. And also in 1917, the passenger steamers, instead of docking on the east side, docked on the west side. So that was another thorn in the traction line side. And they were trying to sell, they were in trouble, of course, and they were trying to sell the southern portion to St. Thomas. St. Thomas had always threatened the traction line with that they were going to build a line to Port Stanley too, but apparently they didn't. 1917 it ceased operation, and then in 1919 the mortgagees of the defunct railroad accepted an offer of $25,000 from the city of St. Thomas for the Barnes substation and overhead lines, freight house, spur lines, etc. on west end of Thomas Street. And that was the end of the traction line.
Yes. One of the first railroads going bankrupt because of another electric railroad.
They had great designs. Over the years, they planned on running these radial lines to Sparta, Fingal, Elmer, Strathroy, Delaware, and Woodstock. And some of the farmers were anxious to get the line. They were willing to give their land away. Now, can I give a rundown on, is anybody interested in the physical remnants? There are a few around.
Yes.
Okay, we'll start in London. Rideout Street, south end of Rideout Street at the Thames River. There was a cement abutment on the north side of the river, east of the bridge. Now, if anybody can remember the old iron bridge that was on the south end of Rideout, that was the traction line bridge that had been moved and widened for street traffic. Lambeth, the right-hand turn in front of the Royal Bank, is the former roadbed. It's the station and the transformer building located here. St. Thomas, Wellington Road South near the service station, evidence of cutting lead into the subway under the GTW tracks or the CNR. The concrete arch is still visible on the north side yard at the back of 99 Crescent Street. Cement culvert north of Southdale Line, accessible from Sauve Ave. Fruit Ridge Road, there's evidence of a north side east of Mitch Hepburn's. There's a long raised roadbed curving to the west at the roadside. Union, there's a cement culvert at the east end of the pond. And south of Union, I'm sure the row of evergreen trees that's along there was planted on the old track bed. And there is some evidence coming down the hill into Port of some railway embankments to the east. When I was living at Port here, well, it was back in the 40s, there used to be evidence of an old wooden trestle, and I found out later that they had to provide an underpass for, I think it was Hepburn's cattle, to get from one side to the other. So it was kind of a trestle instead of a bridge.
Where was it?
Coming down the hill, as you break over the top of the hill and you look to the left, there's
where the green roof is, the rest
be north of the green roof. Yeah. There used to be some wooden pilings up in there, and I found out from reading the papers that they had to put a runway or a walkway for the cattle to get back and forth.
Well, there was quite a bit of evidence there until about 10 years ago.
Yeah,
and it disappeared in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
John, backing up a little bit, excuse me. First Ave in St. Thomas, they just took up bridge everything
Yeah.
on First Ave. I always understood that the narrow passage under there.
Well, both the city streetcar and the traction line use that. Yeah. Yeah.
But it was really built for the street railway.
Okay.
That was about 1907. They put both that and the Ross Street subway.
Did you mention Rideout Street?
Rideout Street in London, yeah. South end, where it crosses the river.
Is that where the traction line was?
It was east of that. You'll see a cement embankment on the north side of the river, maybe 100 yards east of the roadway.
Well, where was the terminus moment?
They were on Rideout Street.
I'm sorry?
They weren't on Rideout Street.
No, they weren't. They were east of it.
Yeah.
But you can see this.
Their weddings, when they built the road, and he wanted the thing widened, he had them move the abutment over. Wayne did that. on, what was it, Cartwright Street, I believe.
Yeah, Cartwright.
So that abutment was moved, and the road was widened, because the traction line ran right through there. From Portland and Rideout, from Portland and.
Well, all I know is there's a cement abutment there east of Rideout that was the north end of the traction line bridge. And then they moved the bridge to Rideout and widened it for the roadway.
Okay.
Doug, the London station in John, was it the Salvation Army?
Yeah, and that,
I
yeah,
have a picture of it here.
yeah. Have you?
good.
Yeah.
This is my traction line. And the reason I brought it, you weren't there on Saturday to the meeting that he usually was at. They said there was going to be Don was going to give a presentation of Port Stanley. So I go into the meeting thinking, hey, Cousins is going to be there talking about Port Stanley. Some guy by the name of Murphy,
Joe. I don't know who he, I don't know.
Don Murphy was there and gave a talk in Port Stanley, and I was aghast. I wasn't even sure where Port Stanley was by the time he got done.
I really wanted to be there, but I just couldn't be there.
So that's why I brought my traction line. If there's any dispute, it's here. This is the Bible. The photographs, everything is in that goddamn thing that I can find at the traction line. From I have one postcard coming that mentions what's the little town south of Landon?
Temple?
No, not Temple.
Scottsville.
Scottsville, where the guy gets it, he's going to take the car from there into London. It's right written on the back. Everything possible that I can run into on the traction line is in that ruddy book.
Good, good.
Anyway,
That is quite a tome.
I guess I'm the next one, am
Anyway, I have a photograph on your book.
I? You can have a look at it. I mean, hey, that's why I brought it. I'm more than willing to let you have a look.
I might just
Four
say,
different stories are there on the traction line. If you recall, about 3 years ago, I made a suggestion about doing Port Stanley in postcards. Everybody remember that? And the idea was we were going to have 3 books done, and one for the library, one for the association here, and I forget what the other one was going to be. And so it was taken up, and away we went. Eventually, all books were done and we sold off, and hey, the thing was a success. Great. We're now to a point in Port Stanley that I think probably the history involved we are missing the boat. The goofs and
Yeah, yeah.
Lloyd Auckland, I know, organized the one in 65. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, Steve Peters and I tried to walk part of it, but it was fast going. And
Yeah.
since then, a lot of it's disappeared. It's going quite a bit. One of the interesting things south of Elm Street, well, quite a bit south of Elm Street, towards Southdale Road, and into the Hepburn property down to Fruit Ridge. You can see the trail of the traction line and the trees that are growing on either side of where the track was. Apple trees and so forth, people eating an apple, throwing it out, and took root. They're still there, some of them.
One of the other interesting things too was when the traction line were acquiring land, the highway was a toll road, a privately owned toll road at the time. And so they started out south of St. Thomas, and you'll notice every intersection, the track moves east or west a few yards, even up to the where Mitch Hepburn lives. I think it's 400 or 500 yards that the track moved to the west.
And it's all there.
But they wanted to move or put their line through on the fence lines, so they didn't have to disrupt a farmer's field. So this is why they jig-jag all over the place coming south. And then when they first laid the line, they had some pretty sharp curves on it. And then when the other railroad took it over, they eased all the corners so they could run faster.
Well, they're pretty sharp. They appear to be today.
Yeah.
Pretty sharp, those at the Hepburn on the Fruit Ridge line. But there must be mile and a half of very evident suggestion of where the track was.
Yeah.
There's roadway there now.
It's kind of a laneway in that, you're talking about,
Both north and south of Fruit Ridge.
yeah. South of it, I haven't,
South of it, not directly south, but if you go to the next field, halfway down the lot line, it takes up again and
I see,
it's
yeah.
there. And it's used. Not.
One of the funny, wasn't very happy incident for the horse, but that culvert that we were talking about north of Southdale Line was a trestle when they first built it. They just built a wooden trestle across there, and this Harry Jewell, he was an old motorman that we had talked to years and years ago, and he talked about a horse being on that trestle with its legs through between the ties, and they had to get a special crew out to kind of pry the horse up out of it.
I went over to, Steve Peters and I went over, and we took a girl over with us to interview Harry Jewell.
Yeah.
She was the camera lady, and Steve and I did the interview. It was well over an hour. It was a very good interview. And we got outside, and she didn't have the camera, but there was no film of the camera. Boy, did she get her face covered with snow. We never did get back to do it.
John, I have a question for you. I'd heard years ago that fishermen, and back this up, Sam, that caught fish in Port Stanley, put it on the traction line up to St. Thomas. That fish was for sale next day in New York
Yeah.
City.
Born 1935.
John, do you remember the date that the last employee died? Jack?
No, I don't. Jack Brumpton?
I don't remember. You?
2001, I believe.
Yeah.
2001. He was 102 years old.
Wow.
That's the right thing.
Any other questions to ask of John in this presentation? Lee?
Was the traction line then mainly for freight and things, or was it passenger?
Passenger
Oh,
was the main thrust.
was the main, and then the fish were kind
There
of.
were too many hills for it to be a viable freight operation. They had 3 major hills going north and the same coming south.
But it was a great boon to farmers along the line for milk.
Oh, they'd do anything.
It
They
was
threw newspapers off.
a great thing for them. My grandfather was out across from the Ford plant.
But it
and he
didn't
sent
hook
his-
into White Station. That's the new
No,
one.
no,
So
that's
this one
White.
was over
Yeah, it followed the highway, the roadway.
on the
Well, it
side
was-
of the highway.
Well, it
Down
went
past
back
Mid-
and forth.
Down
Back
past
and
Mitch
forth.
Hepburn's farm.
Yeah.
You know where the buildings are for his place. It came through
But
up
north
there.
of St. Thomas, from Talbotville
Yeah.
north, it followed the roadway.
There again, they had landowner problems because they switched twice coming south of Lambeth till they got into Talbotville. They were on the east side to start with, and then they went over to the west side and then come back to the east side.
Well, my grandfather was certainly glad, more than glad, he would have
Yeah.
given the land to the traction line.
That's probably why it was on the west side of the road there.
Yeah, he made sure it was. And my father courted my mother. They got married in 1916, and he courted my mother on the traction line. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be here.
Well, with that, Donald, thank you very much, John. And also, we have ad-libbing to that, Bob Weare's going to talk about telephone poles.
Yes, what happened was the construction of the underground services in the village here, that some of these poles were related to the old pictures of the traction line. And when you look at some of the old pictures in our postcard books we have, there's in essence 3 sets of poles. And the reason for that, you'd have one for the electricity to supply the lights, the second one for the overhead for the traction line, and the third set for the telegraph system. So sometimes you look at a photo and there could be within 3 feet a pole and another 3 feet another pole. And so it interrelates, and that's why I took it upon myself to take photos of the overhead poles before they were removed. this has been a long time coming, that we're very privileged to have John here, because with John and Doug just walking encyclopedias, and Don, of course, of the traction line, John also of the St. Thomas Municipal Streetcar System. He's basically the last of the Mohicans as far as knowledge of the streetcar system. I'll start by I'd like to start with a blank white piece of paper, and then you just start living and ad-libbing. And with John, he's give his comments for our enjoyment, and I hope I can fill in some more. And Don, of course, will chip in as per normal, and Sam also, and of course Doug. The traction line, in essence, it is still a company. What happened, when the Ford plant, St. Thomas Ford plant, was built in '67, they had to expropriate property from the traction line. And there's a trustee in Toronto, it's a law office, and they still look after their affairs. As a matter of fact, Houghton, the surveyor, has maps of the traction line. I should have had a copy, but I haven't yet. One of those, you better do it or it's gone. And with that in mind, where I heard about a company is surveyors keep bumping into it, and they have to address the legality of this company, even yet. Possibly the charter requirements and that done? No. So with that in mind, all these pictures that we do have, especially we're privileged with Mike here, there should be a central collection data bank of pictures, because we won't know where they'll end up. There's a few collections of in our room we have of the traction line, but we could now electronically reproduce them and have a data source. One of my books of the LNPS, it's digitally at the archives in the basement at the Elgin County, and I got 3 more to go. That's just a question, Mike, about we should have a repository for it.
All my traction line pictures I got from John.
Oh, really? Okay. Sherman or Seaman, he has a brilliant collection of crystal clear traction line pictures. He's in Hamilton, but I don't know what his health is. He used to be at the railway shows, and the last while everybody's bought his pictures, so he can't sell them because he converted the converted, and so there's economically not wise for him to show up. John was saying about the traction line. In essence, it's the 2 companies, and after the fire, and had to reorganize due to bankruptcy.
Do their electrical system.
And the electrical system. It's a lot of people didn't know that. Also, the shared trackage, as John has brought up, from Inkerman to the corner of First Ave, and down First Ave.
Well, the west end of Talbot, really, Bob.
Yes.
Yeah, they come all the way length of Talbot and down First Ave.
Where did the twinning of the 2 lines?
Right in front of the old City Hall, from, you mean the twinning?
Of the traction line and the streetcar.
It'd be the corner of Wellington and First Ave.
That's where the one joint, but then the other, Inkerman and Talbot?
No, this is just do we have a map?
Yes. What are we looking for, John?
I thought there was an overall view of the streetcar system in St.
Yes, I give some out.
I probably got some here somewhere.
Yeah, they're right here.
Well, to me,
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
This track right here.
Oh, between Alma and
Yeah.
Inkerman.
See, this was part of the belt line of the city. And this was a gap.
Oh, okay,
Building.
that's the gap
Yeah.
you were talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other one was the line in here where they come into the station. There was a siding put in there.
Was that the line into the Castle Station, was it a streetcar or traction line?
Well, it sounded like it was streetcar, Bob. Here it is. Here it is here, you
Shown,
see.
yes.
And I had the one item there that said that they had strung wire on this line to get their cars, like push cars
Okay.
back into the station.
There's also another map from the Insurance Bureau, and it shows the connection between the New York Central, the streetcars, and the traction line at Stanley Street. And it's I have some pictures of the cars. They're quite rudimentary, really, weren't they? The traction line freight cars.
Their freight engine was, well, they looked like they were home built.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
So Bob, have you got, is that your report on your upright telephone poles?
No, it's going to be interrelated. I'm just going to carry on a bit. They also had a block system where the streetcars and the traction line joined at First Ave and Wellington. And where was the other end of it, John?
It'd be this corner here, Bob, because the
At Inkerman
street cars
and
would
Talbot.
go up here. And part of the problem, the traction line, of course, this system was, you threw a switch here and turned the light on over here, and if this light was lit, the city streetcar couldn't go into that area.
For its time, it was quite a advanced signaling system,
But
wasn't
there was a lot of problems with it, though, that
it? Right.
they were accusing the people that were in favor of the traction line of turning the light on as soon as they saw the traction car coming up from Port Stanley.
Okay. So some favoritism even back then. The Port Stanley layout, when we, Hepburn Hill, at Green Roof, you can see the bank to the east of the green roof, and then as it goes along to the into the village from the green roof to the village lines, you can see the bank cut on the south side of the road. It's still visible.
South side of the road. It's on the east side of the road. After it leaves the green roof, it's on the east side of the road.
And then it
Quite evident.
goes
and then
past
it
Dick Walker's.
crosses over to the other side.
Yeah. Was that the existing number 4 highway right there was not where it is it?
Oh, I think it was.
Oh, okay. I have a photo of it, and it
I think it was.
this.
I thought they come in on the top road back then.
Yeah.
The roadway that takes you to that new house sitting well off the road,
Yes.
that is the path where it came, and it crossed right over just south of the brick house. I forget the.
I think right at the curve there,
Crossed over there.
Okay.
to the west side.
Where did it land?
Down here.
No.
Oh.
At the point you get to the bottom of the hill, where was it?
Well, then it started going right down the road.
The west side. It came down the west side at the bottom of the hill.
Did it?
Yeah, crossed
Like
over.
where Mueller Water Garden's front yard is now?
Yeah.
So it came down old Edgar Johnson, through Edgar Johnson's farm. Well, top of the hill.
Oh, I see.
Sam, from the
Larry C's boy just built a house across the green roof. Over a little bit, over to the west a little bit. Back in the
I
field.
think it'd be south of that where it crossed over.
Yeah, okay.
Kim Kipp, where he lives, from the road to his driveway, you can see the depression right there. And then the postcards of the main intersection here, of course, the tracks go right down the road.
The best thing to get is the plans that Houghton's got.
Yes.
I have them.
Oh, okay.
I have those plans. I don't know if I could lay my hands on them, but I have them all from London, Port Stanley.
Yeah, okay.
And that's the best thing.
And then, once we get to the traction line station here, it went down past, yes. John also has a picture of it. It,
Pass it around then, Bob.
okay, go that way. It goes down the main street to the old town hall, but there was an escape track right in front of the station so that the cars could pass each other. Plus another 180-degree curve
Yeah, come right
that John is stating
around here.
for it went right to the dock. Go to the doctor's office, you'll see the picture of the in one of the waiting rooms, examination rooms, the 180-degree turn. Now, the traction line station, of course, had telegraph, and Jack Brumpton, who we were bringing up, he would also do commercial telegraph, and he had a choice of working afternoons on the PM or days on the LMPS. He chose the latter. He wanted the day job. So another interesting thing is a question. We at one time had a booklet of the Port Stanley streetcar system of shares. Was part of that charter ever transferred to the traction line or not? It's more of a question than an answer. That really hasn't been addressed. And another just small little tidbit, at the parish farm, there was a cement pad, and apparently there was a electrical transmission generator there too.
Where was this, Bob?
On the parish farm at Southdale.
Oh,
It was V-shaped, the concrete. Quite an interesting engineering feat, because with frost and everything, it could probably just go up and down. You wouldn't have problems. All their poles for the system, they weren't up and down. They were always on an angle. Then they wouldn't have to dead man. It was done on the cheap, wasn't it, John?
it sure was.
Yeah. And of course, there's also a map of at Stanley Street and where the New York Central and the traction line streetcar intersected, and that's why there's a picture of a New York Central train going down Talbot Street. Now, I was asked about the hydro poles. We have taken pictures of the hydro poles before they're removed, and a DVD, and I give Craig a copy of them so we can compare them with our postcard books of 1 and 2. So we have that.
I wish to thank Bob for his abundance of information. Incidentally, folks, for the people that don't know, he is the last of ... He knows his Morse code inside and out, and that's what he used to me on the railroad.
I had more hair then, though.
I wish to thank Bob and John. I did promise these good people would be